What's up guys, welcome to the channel. If you're new, my name is Charles, owner of mXrevival and mXrevival.com, and today we're going to work on the old 89 RM250. Some of you guys have been asking, dude, when are you going to finish that bike? What's going on with the 89 series? And you have been patient, and I'm in a little bit of a gap before the next giveaway bike, so I figured let's go ahead and tear into it, at least for one episode. Now, I will eventually finish it, but being a personal project, it sits on the back burner compared to more important things like building bikes for you guys to win. You know the drill. Anyways, guys, today I have 3 topics for today's episode, 3 things we're gonna go over that I've been wanting to share with you since last October, probably. Now, the first thing we're gonna talk about, guys, are the amazing coatings that Dean over at Fast Blast and Coat in Boise did. These came out unbelievable, so we're going to do an overview, talk about what colors they are, all that sort of thing. Item number 2 on the list, I have a huge problem, guys. I cannot get this gorgeous vapor blasted swing arm back into the frame, and I know that doesn't make sense right now. I'm going to explain why I think that happened shortly. Then we're going to fix it and finally get this really good looking sucker installed back into the ass of the bike. And item number 3, we're not going to be able to get the swing arm back into the frame and engine if we don't first repair the crusty old swing arm main pin that used to look like this and turn it into something that looks like this with a fresh coat of zinc. So those are our 3 hit list items for today. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So let's go ahead and jump back into the old 89 RM250 build. One of those ought to work. All right, guys, here we are on the bench. First things first, let's go ahead and take a closer look at these absolutely gorgeous parts that Dean over at Fast Blast did for us. I'm gonna go ahead and leave his contact information below, some links for you. That way you can hit him up, you can send him your brakes, your little parts, your fork tubes, your frames, doesn't matter, whatever it is, you can see it's gonna come out amazing. So first up, guys, we got the Traffic Blue. I'll give you the RAL number later in this video. Going for an OEM look on the frame and the spring. Ultimately, this is probably gonna end up left over because it's too light for my fat ass, and I found out where to get springs for this bike, being as old as it is. I should also mention that anything that's blue is powder coat, everything else is something else, and we'll get to that in just a second. And though I'm giving you the RAL on this gorgeous Traffic Blue, doesn't really matter because you're probably gonna send your parts to Dean anyways. Now on to some of the engine bits. This is a really cool Cerakote color. It's called Concrete, and I chose this because I was trying to find something that really mimicked or mirrored some of the last generation RM250s and some of the RMZs currently too. Trying to bring a little bit of a newer feel into the old 89. Not new like goofy or not period correct so bad that it looks wrong, but something that is very Suzuki-esque, I guess you could say. So again, this color is called Concrete. I freaking love it. I might do the hubs in this color as well. Right now they're vapor blasted. You guys will see those later when we finally build the wheels. In love with this color, especially against the blue. This will go good on any bike, especially a Suzuki. Moving some of this stuff out of the way, I want to show you what Dean did to these radiators. Now, unfortunately, I cannot recall, and I forgot to ask Dean what this is, what the name is exactly, but this is a black coating. I can't remember if it's Cerakote. I don't think it is. I'm totally butchering this, so apologies. But this coating is not only really cool looking, and it not only brought the radiators back to life, but it also expels heat. So he uses this stuff on exhaust pipes, and apparently it reduces the temperatures of exhaust substantially, somewhere in the 40 to 50% range, if I'm not mistaken. Basically some insane number you wouldn't expect. And so when they coat exhaust pipes inside and out, that might be the combined 50%, whatever it is, it's a big deal. So I'll go ahead and get that information from Dean, and I will leave that down in the description below with his contact information if you'd like to get this done. Really cool stuff. Lastly, on the radiators, couldn't believe it, still able to get the OEM louvers for these. That blew my mind. So I might have bought the last 2 sets that were in stock. Sorry about that. I got a 125 here too. I was also able to get, if you can even see it, there's some springs back in here that actually retain these louvers, top and bottom. All new springs, all new louvers. Was totally shocked to be able to get those. Let's go ahead and check out the frame. All right, guys, here we are at the frame. Move it around a little bit. Let the light hit it in all kinds of fantastic ways. Gorgeous. RAL number is 5017, 5017, Traffic Blue. So if you like this color, now you know what it's called. You can do the same thing to whatever it is your heart desires. End of the day, Dean did such an amazing job, man. Everything is clean. All the threads are chased everywhere. There isn't any buildup of powder coat on anything where it should not be. Clearance to the top. Up here, you guys can't see it, around where these stem bearings and seals go, so there isn't any added thickness or tolerance that's going to prohibit anything from going back together properly. Just an amazing job. Just a beautiful frame. And you might remember from an earlier episode, I cut that gigantic moose knuckle of a kickstand bracket off the back of this frame too. So that came out really well. Made it nice and smooth, sort of has a decent transition to where you can't tell that was ever even a thing. So this is what it looks like without that stupid kickstand bracket on it, which I don't even know why they put that on the RM track bike in the first place. Probably shares the frame with the RMX, I'm not sure. You guys may notice the engine's looking pretty good too. It's actually not that nice. It looks a lot better on camera. If you remember, we vapor blasted this engine complete. It's my bike. It's a test I wanted to do. I wouldn't recommend it unless it's your bike, but the idea was to go ahead and vapor blast it kind of on the cheap and dirty, if you will. And then when we do a top end, we're gonna go ahead and replace or zinc plate all this hardware and replace all the engine's main bolts with a Bolt Motorcycle Hardware dimple dyed zinc plated kit like these here. So that will finish cleaning everything up. It's kind of a backwards way of doing an engine and making it look good without doing a rebuild. Again, it was a test. Do it at your own risk. This is not financial advice, all that other stuff YouTubers say. At the end of the day though, coming along clean. This looks really good for keeping it budget friendly and all that sort of thing. I think it looks really nice. And now guys, it is time for our problem, which is right in this area here. As I mentioned, I cannot get the stinking swing arm back in the bike, unfortunately, but it's gonna look good when we do. I didn't do a crazy job on this. Still has little dings and scratches from use. I intend to ride this bike, but overall, at a glance, it looks pretty good and definitely looks 1,000 times better than it used to. So we'll be able to keep riding it. I did a light brushed look in there. I'm not sure if you can see that. You will later, using our boy Cameron's Prime MX pads. You know the drill. You guys use these too. Just did it by hand, a little wax on, wax off. So here's our issue, boys. We have a swing arm that is, with the steel colors installed, 8 inches wide. Now, when I tried to prep this or mock this up, let's say, with the swing arm back in the frame and the engine, it wouldn't go in. Let's go ahead and check this out. I don't know how bad it's gonna be, but shouldn't be too bad, but it will not fit right now. We are about 7 7/8. A little bit less than 1/8 of an inch. So this thing closed up a little bit, and I believe that happened when it got powder coated and it went into the big powder coating oven. I believe the frame contracted a little bit, and I believe it's also normal in some cases too. I saw a brand new 1999 RM250 do this right off the showroom floor when I was a kid. Dad bought a brand new bike to race, break it apart to grease it. That whole shebang, you guys know they're dry from the factory. He and a buddy were trying to put this thing together for hours and hours and hours, cussing at it, swearing at it, hitting it with hammers. Took them forever to fix it, so we're gonna go ahead and fix this right now. And the only way I could think to do that with the tools I have at home, I don't have any frame modifying equipment, is to bust out the old E250 bottle jack out of the moto van, and we're gonna try and spread this thing just a little bit so we can get the swing arm back into the frame. So another experiment, and we'll see what happens. Now, first things first, we need to get this engine back out of here. I don't want to be banging into it, scuffing up powder coating, all that sort of thing. Looks like I forgot. I'll put a bolt in the bottom of this bad boy. Come on out of there, you. Simple. These old frames are pretty gapped out, easy to get stuff in and out of. Kind of like my ex-girlfriend. Right, let's go ahead and get this thing at an angle where it will be easier or easiest for you guys to join me on this screwed up adventure. This thing fits literally just perfectly. I have just enough room for some microfiber towels so I don't gouge this thing up. I'll go ahead and use a little bit of tape so I'm not trying to monkey all this stuff in there and hold it up and balance the jack and all this sort of thing. All right, we are all protected. See if we can slide this in here. That's about right. I mean, only problem with the microfiber so far is that I kind of can't tell if the frame's moving or where it's moving, if so. We kind of don't really have a good surface anymore to measure against because I'm covering it up. The inside of the frame, the posts come out, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch each, where the swing arm pushes against the sides of the frame, so that's where I was measuring from before. We're just gonna have to open this thing up gently and maybe just hope it comes back if we go too far. There should be some spring back in the metal. That's nice. I can turn this with a screwdriver. I can hear the frame making some sounds. All right, I'm gonna stop right there. We're gonna relieve that jack and then see what the measurements are, because like I said, I can't see what's going on right now. First time I've used a bottle jack to open some frame rails. All right, with our tape measure, we are now at, it opened about a 1/16. Shockingly, we could probably almost force that in with everything back together, but I don't want to risk scratching everything up. That will just absolutely pulverize the powder coating. So we're going to give that a little bit more pepper, see what happens. All right, we'll give you guys a different angle here. Hopefully you can still see everything okay. Moving on to a channel lock. The screwdriver is very tough to turn this by hand, but I also don't want to use the, I guess, factory equipped Ford cranking mechanism for this, because you have such good leverage that I may overdo it. So we're just going to take our time, and I think we'll be okay, unless we break this piece of plastic, which is also very possible. Definitely a lot of pressure going on right now. Looks like if that kickstand mount was still here on the frame, I wouldn't even be able to swing this channel lock in this direction. Good for me. I've got to be where I want to go right now. Maybe a little bit wider than 8 inches. It was at 7 7/8. Swing arms 8 wide, collar to collar. So we'll back that off. All right, take another measurement. We are sitting at about the same. So it springs back, basically, is what's happening. I need to give her a bit more pepper. All right, third and final time. We're gonna make it work this time. Not doing it again. It means we're gonna have to spread her like never before. All right, that feels pretty gnarly. I don't wanna do it again though, so for one more for good luck. How's that for a scientific method? F around and find out. Frame still looks good. Haven't gouged it up yet. Ah, so close. Good to know that works though. Let's go ahead and see if we can get everything weaseled back in there. Just like that. I'd rather have it a little bit closed than open it too far on accident. Again, unlike my ex. All right, let's get this sucker back in there. Maybe if this ends up being too tough, I can do the swing arm first and then drop the engine in, although I feel like the swing arm would probably be in the way. I've never tried that. Will it fit? Again, still a little bit closed, as we just touched on. Man, just a little too much. Wonder if we can work that jack in up top. I don't think we have the room for that. Might be able to rock this engine just a little bit. Man, it is just not quite there. So the engine is lightly rotated this direction, just sitting on that one bolt. I'm gonna see if I can toggle that around a little bit. Give it a little shake. Yeah, the fact of the matter is the frame's just not quite opened back up enough. Wish I had more leverage on this. I could do it by hand. But I'm legit probably 1/16 off for this to slide in with ease. So I guess we're going back to the spread method. So guys, it looks like I have just enough room, not even enough room for the microfiber, to get back in here and maybe try all this with the engine installed. That would actually help out a lot, because then I could probably weasel that swing arm in. All right, we have so little clearance now that I've actually added tape to the jack itself for protection instead of the microfiber. We just don't have the room for it, so working on a pretty limited margin here, but might be able to pull this off. Maybe. Let's see. Right there, I have enough room to possibly get that swing arm in. This is high enough. Either way, something tells me that this is gonna work, so let's have at it. Moment of truth. See what happens. Prepare for penetration. Oh, with ease. Room left over. Love it. I have a giant screwdriver here. Not just happy to see you. And we're gonna let that do all the holding, because as you remember, we still need to zinc our main pin. Go ahead and relax this. And I should have just done that from the beginning. That was super, super easy. We didn't damage the frame, and it's not all stretched wide like you know who. Look at that. Now it's all pinched in there, but geez, man, it looks good. Swing arm on this blue. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys, here we are on the bench using one of my favorite tools in the shop. This is our zinc plating machine. You can find these on mXrevival.com. It is a tremendous support to the channel when you guys pick up your zinc plating kits from our website, so thank you in advance. But what we're gonna do now is make this swing arm main pin look like this swing arm main pin. This is actually out of my 97 RM250. They're the same pin, no surprise there, but this pin here, our 89 pin that we're gonna use, actually this is out of an 06 RM250. If you saw the swing arm bearing repair video, you know we decimated the original 89, it was frozen. Anyway, this guy here, this main pin used to look like this front axle. Not so good. So if you'd like to know how I got our current main pin, which is bare steel right now, got to clean my hands before I touch it after touching that dirty front axle. If you'd like to learn how we got to this point, watch the last video in this 89 RM250 build series. I show you guys how to strip old zinc off and then go ahead and vapor blast or use Cameron's Prime MX pads to get the part to a finish that's going to look like chrome when we pull this out of the plating tank. So very, very handy. We use the Prime MX pads on the end of this here. You can see this is quite a bit nicer than the shaft of the main pin here. This is just a vapor blast. And we also went ahead and chamfered the inside of that with a unibit. So reshaped it, took the dents out. Cameron's pads are really good for that sort of thing. So that will look like chrome when we're done here. Now I also have a full tutorial video on how to do this already up on the channel. So I'm gonna link that below. That way today, guys, we can just keep this show moving, get this thing plated, get it back in the bike. And this whole process is pretty fast. When you use a bolt that you can drop completely into the tank, fully submerged, it's a 10-minute deal. In this case, when I have a larger pin, there are some limitations on the rectifier, which only goes up to 5 amps. This is under the 5 amp threshold, but because it's so big, and while you can get it to fit in the bucket using a couple different copper wires and some weird methods, I just like to plate these 50-50. So I dip it 50% in the top, plate it, 50% in the bottom, plate it, pull it out, and this is the result. So this is what we're shooting for right here. Although the head of our current one's gonna look a little better because we used the Prime MX pads on that. Link below. Support Cameron, gotta do it. Anyway, after some simple calculations, which was about 2.9 amps for plating this entire piece, and I mentioned we're gonna break it in half, 50-50, we end up with 1.45 amps on each side. So normally we'd hang parts off this bar here. We're gonna go ahead and pull that bar out, and then I use just a random piece of cardboard. This was on a Costco strawberry box or something. Had a hole in it. It's perfect. I drop this sucker on the top. Then I can use a pair of vice grips to clamp the part and sort of let it float. 50% in, 50% out right there. So let's go ahead and do that. I like to start with blue shop rag, fold it in thirds. You don't want the metal from the tool to be on this surface because we're keeping it isolated, kind of like a jacket on a copper wire would from the tool, because we're going to be sending electricity through this part in order for the plating process to actually work. So fold up the towel, put it around your part, get your channel locks, or your vice grips rather, find a good snug bite point that you like, and this has already been pre-cleaned with acetone. Go ahead and I give it a few shakes. That way we can get some liquid into the end of this part. We don't want to have a bubble in there, which would prohibit some plating from actually occurring. Slide this in until it's about 50% in. Currently the water or the solution, chemical solution, up to about this point here. So now we can go ahead and hook up our leads, clamp it right on to the end of this bad boy, fire up the rectifier, and then I need to go ahead and set the value at the 1.45 amps we spoke about. Then we press play, walk away for 10 minutes, go do something else, come back, flip it over, do the same thing again. We are at 1.45 right there, go. All right, we just hit the 10-minute mark, shut the machine down, Go ahead and check this thing out. You guys should be able to distinctly see a difference, if I can get this sucker off, between the unplated side and the plated side. You can see the line right there. Plated and raw steel. Hopefully the light is catching that okay for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and dunk that in some distilled water, rinse some of that solution off. I like to dry them off as well. That way you don't get any, I guess, hazy spots. Sometimes you don't get the solution off all the way. End up getting a little bit of haze on there. But check that out. Looks good. Got a nice plate up to that point. Pretty obvious. Raw steel on the other side. I can't wait to see the end of this here. That's gonna look really, really good when it comes out. So we will get our towel wrapped back around. We will dip this a couple times because we have that little hollow air bubble spot in the end of the main pin there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and slide this into the plating tank up until the point where I hit that line where the plating stops. I like to leave a little bit of overlap. Not really a big deal. This stuff goes on thin. Never had a tolerance issue, but that's just the best job we can do of getting a plate on both sides without having, you know, a huge overlap in the middle. So we're locked and loaded. Clamp this back on. We're still at our 1.45 amps. Fired up. 10 more minutes. See what she brings. All right, 10 minutes have passed. Let's get everything disconnected. Pull this beautiful main pin back out. Get it rinsed off. Looking good. Distilled water. Give it a bath. And dry it off. And then after this step, we're going to do one more thing. Last step in the process. It's actually something I haven't shown you guys yet. All right, guys, this is the last step in the zinc plating process. This is called chromate. This actually protects the zinc from getting sort of a haze on it. The bolt is now protected, or part, and hot damn does it look good. You can see why I like the Prime MX pads specifically for visible parts. It looks just unbelievable, better than stock by a large margin. Anyways, if you do not put this, again, on the freshly zinc plated part, it will tend to haze a little bit early. The part is still protected, but if you want to keep this looking good, you need to dip it in some chromate. So very easy. I'll show you a part real quick. So here's the difference between chromate and not chromate. We're using a product called blue chromate. You can also find this on the mXrevival website. I will leave the link for that next to the zinc plating kit and also next to the video on how to do the math for everything we've done today. But you can see the top bolt has a bit of a blue hue to it. The zinc we just did, maybe a little bit tingy, maybe a little yellowed. Anyways, when you stick the part, whatever it may be, after zinc plating into the blue chromate, blue is a very clear sort of end result. As you can see, this is that 97 main pin. So we're gonna get this color out of it. It's gonna look really good, and then the zinc will be protected. And all you need to do, go ahead and give it a quick bath again in some distilled water. And this is just distilled water mixed with the chemical itself. Stick that in there for about 1 minute. Now, I could get another bin, and I'm shaking the air bubbles out of the tip of this thing. I could get another bin much like this. I probably will. You can see this is not fancy. You can literally do this in your grandma's basement if you want. Not everything is fancy here in the shop. But you stick this in there for 1 minute, take it out, rinse it off. I like to, again, dry off the end that just came out so that we don't have any spots or mess up the good looks of that really chromed out looking end of the main pin. Then flip it over, do this again, and you'll also see the line that was at about the midway point of the one we just did will sort of go away. You can kind of see the line there at that zinc overlap from when I did this. That tends to go away a little bit once you do this process as well. All right, it's been about 1 minute. Get that sucker out of there. Go ahead and rinse that solution off. You guys can see I've been wearing gloves since the very beginning of this video, trying to keep my hands not only clean for these parts, but to keep the chemicals off my skin. That's very important. You can see real quick how this part has changed. You have a little bit more yellowy, let's say, on this end. versus a little bit more of a blue hue, more chrome looking on this end. I'm pretty sure you can see that. I can see it pretty dang well here. Starts to get a little yellow there and more clear and chromy over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and blast this with the air compressor real quick, and we'll do the other side, grease it, we'll be done. The layer. All right, last step. You're gonna have some overlap here with the chromate because this goes in further than 50%. It's all good, doesn't matter. And even if it did make some kind of a mark, it's the part you can't see, so it really doesn't matter. I'm constantly cleaning my hands, like over and over throughout these processes. Make sure I don't get any oil from anything I've touched into any chemical. This will make both the chromate and the zinc plating solution last for a really, really long time. I think I've had that particular plating tank set up for over a year without needing to refresh it. And a lot of that is attributed to just keeping things really, really clean as you go. All right, that'll do it. This bad boy's just about done. Go ahead and get it rinsed off again, dried off again. Then we're gonna go throw some waterproof grease on it, install it, and check out our finished result. All right, it's showtime. Let's get this main pin installed. So, wouldn't you say that this gorgeous looking piece of hardware, I mean, it looks just amazing. It looks a little bit better than this crusty old axle. I have to do all these parts too. Every bolt in the bike that's large, or you wouldn't want to pay to replace, if you can even still get it. In the case of the RM250, yes, you still can. But some of the stuff is obsolete, or axles that cost 70 bucks. You don't want to do that. That's 1/5 the cost of the whole plating kit that you'll have the rest of your life. So let's go ahead and get this thing greased up and installed. A little bit of waterproof grease. Don't need much. A little bit goes a long way. It's actually pretty crazy how much you can get done with this plating kit in a short amount of time. Once you've gotten through the learning curve of it all, it's a bit steep in the beginning. There's some math, some calculations to do for each bolt. You can still batch plate, like if you have bolts that are the same size, say 5 or 6 at a time, you can simply multiply the amperage by how many parts you have and then do them all at the same time. But there is a bit of a painful learning curve. But like I said, once you get through that, pretty amazing how fast the whole process goes. Man, so good. Get yourself some Prime MX pads. Throw a little tape on there. We're gonna have to do some rubber mallet taps. And as much as I'd like to say I did this on purpose with the screwdriver in from the left side, it's a total accident. Worked out great. Get this to a point where we're lined up. No mallet taps yet. All right, we're in mallet tap territory now. Pull a little of that tape off there. We are almost bottomed out here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this lined up before it goes into its home here. You can see I'm a little bit rotated. Use a crescent wrench. You don't want to use the channel locks with the teeth. Sometimes you can do this by hand. This is a little bit too snug for me to do it with my fingers. There we go. A few more love taps. Get that tape off there before it's too late. Good to go. And that looks so good in that blue frame. And then just get yourself something that's non-marring for this last part of the job here. You can pull it through the rest of the way with the nut. All right, guys, that's pretty much a wrap for today's video. We definitely checked all the boxes I wanted to check with you. We definitely fixed some things up on the 89, and I must say, this looks really freaking good. I was trying not to let this tingle get me again, this little excitement to keep going, because I've been so divided trying to stay on track with things, but unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for myself and you guys, I think I have the tingle again. Just a little tiny bit. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. It's been a long time since we messed with the 89. Dean, thank you so much for doing an incredible job. As always, I really hope you guys enjoyed the zinc plating. Like I said, it's pretty easy once you get through the learning curve. Go ahead and check the links out below. This is a tool you will love to have in your bike building arsenal, and it will last you for years. I personally love it. I can't get my hands off this thing. So until next time, stay tuned for a future 89 video, whenever that may be. I'll show you guys the killer Bolt motorcycle hardware engine fastener bolt kit that they put together for us from scratch. Didn't exist before this, but you can probably go get yourself one now as well. And then of course, everything you guys see here that is not done yet, we'll be able to tackle in a future video. I am on the hunt for a 1989, specifically, no other year, 1989 RM250 shock body. You guys may remember from an earlier video, this one's stripped. The threads on the body stripped when we took off the locking collars to get the spring off. Kind of a bummer. Not the first time I've seen that happen, but if you have an 89 shock, let me know. And until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy it, shred safe, and I will see you very soon.